Welcome to Whispers in the Dark. Long before this story was softened, before it was painted in gold and music, there was a castle. It stands on a hill no map remembers. Its gates are always open. Its windows glow like watchful eyes in the storm. A man walked through those gates and never came back. So his daughter followed. You think you know Beauty and the Beast. You remember the rose beneath the glass, the monster who only needed love, the curse that could be broken. But this is not the story you remember. Now let's begin. I did not mean to be the sort of person who kept secrets in a notebook and crossed out pages like the words themselves were contagious. I did not mean to become someone who flinched at the sound of chains in a hardware store, or who avoided mirrors like they were doors instead of glass. I used to be ordinary. I used to believe ordinary was a kind of protection. It is not. The first time I saw the castle, it looked like a bruise on the hillside. Not a silhouette you admire, not a place you point at with wonder, but a wound in the landscape that never closed. The road that led there was narrow and old, paved with uneven stone that made the tires of the car complain with every rotation. On either side, the forest leaned inward like it was listening. The trees were tall and thin and too still, their branches locked above the road like fingers interlaced over a mouth. I had been driving since the morning. The town where my father vanished was small enough that the locals called it a village out of habit, but it had a post office, a shop that sold cheap coffee and bread, and a church with a bell that rang too early and too loudly. My father had come there for work, a survey contract, a mapping job for a private buyer who wanted the old land boundaries confirmed. That was what he told me. He had been 53, still stubborn, still convinced he could outwalk anyone in the hills. He called me the night he arrived, told me he had rented a room, told me the air smelled like wet stone and pine, told me he would be home by Friday. Friday passed, then Saturday, then 3 more days. His phone went to voicemail. The landlord said my father checked out early and left before dawn. The police took notes and spoke in tired professional tones. Another missing person, a grown man, a hiker maybe, a slip and fall. They said the forest could swallow you whole. A woman at the shop, old enough to have the slow confidence of someone who has survived every rumor and watched it become true or fade away, slid my coffee across the counter and asked me if I had checked the hill. I asked her what hill. She looked past me at the rain-speckled window and said, as if nomming it would bring it closer, the one with the house that is not a house. She did not smile. She did not wink. She did not look like a person trying to scare a tourist. She looked like someone remembering a smell. I tried the police again. I asked about the hill. They did not tell me there was no hill. That was the first warning. They said it was private land. They said it was dangerous. They said the old road had washed out years ago. They told me not to go looking for trouble. They said if my father had gone there, it was his own fault. That night, I slept in a room above the shop, because every other place was booked or closed or pretending not to exist. The rain kept tapping the roof in a steady, patient rhythm like a fingertip at a door. I lay awake and listened to the village quiet. It was the kind of quiet that felt enforced, like the air itself had been told not to speak. In the early hours, I found myself staring at my phone, scrolling through old photos of my father. In one, he was squinting against sun, laughing at something off camera. In another, he was holding a map with his hands spread wide, as if the paper could not contain what he knew. My throat tightened. My chest felt too small for the air. I went down to the shop as soon as it opened. The old woman was there again. She was not the owner, just someone who lived in the corners of the place like a fixture. I bought coffee I did not want and told her I needed directions. She watched me for a long time. Then she said, "If you go, do not accept anything you cannot carry in your own hands." I did not understand. She leaned closer. Her breath smelled like peppermint and smoke. She said, "Do not take their food. Do not look into the west wing. If you see a rose, do not touch it. And if a voice asks you to look, you keep your eyes on the floor like you are in church." When I asked her who they were, she only shook her head, as if the pronoun was all she dared give me. She drew a rough map on a napkin. It was not detailed. It was not meant to be. It was a suggestion, an outline of a path that probably did not exist for anyone who did not need it. I left in my car with the napkin folded in my pocket and a sense of wrongness in my gut that only grew as the village shrank behind me. The road turned from paved to gravel, then from gravel to dirt. The sky hung low and gray, and the forest thickened into something heavy. The air smelled like damp bark and cold metal. At a certain point, my phone lost signal. The clock on the dashboard blinked, then corrected itself, then blinked again, as if time was an unstable connection too. When the road became too narrow for the car, I parked in a clearing where moss had swallowed old tire tracks, and I continued on foot. The path was there, just as the old woman promised. It was not a path made by feet. It was a path made by permission. The branches overhead were bent back as if someone had walked through, and the trees had politely made room. The ground was soft with decomposing leaves that gave under my boots like damp paper. As I climbed, the temperature dropped. Not gradually, not like climbing a hill and feeling the wind change. It dropped like I had stepped into shade cast by something enormous and close. My breath became visible. The forest grew quieter. Even the birds seemed to have decided they had nothing to say. Then the trees thinned, and the castle appeared. It was larger than it should have been, too tall for the hill, too heavy for the earth. Its stone walls were dark and slick with moisture, as if they sweated. The windows were narrow, and most were black, but some held a faint amber glow that looked like candlelight. Vines crawled up the stone in thick ropes, strangling the architecture the way ivy strangles abandoned houses. But this place was not abandoned. It held itself upright with stubborn pride. The gate was open. There were no guards, no barking dogs, no warning signs, just iron bars curled like claws, and beyond them, a courtyard paved with cracked stone. Rainwater pooled in the crevices, reflecting the overcast sky like dull mirrors. I stood at the threshold and felt something in the air press against me. It was not a breeze. It was a presence. The kind you feel when someone is behind you in an empty room. My skin prickled along my arms. The hair at the nape of my neck lifted. I thought of turning back. I thought of my father, alone somewhere, calling my name into the dark, and the thought pushed me forward. My footsteps echoed in the courtyard, too loud in the hush. The air smelled of wet stone and old smoke. Somewhere, water dripped in a steady rhythm, like a slow heartbeat. The doors to the castle were huge, carved wood banded with iron. They looked older than the forest. One of them was slightly ajar. I placed my hand on the door. The wood was cold, colder than it should have been. It felt like touching the side of a refrigerator, but there was no hum, no electricity, only a numb, dead chill. I pushed. The door swung inward with a long groan that sounded uncomfortably, like a sigh. Inside, the entrance hall rose up into shadow. A grand staircase curved along the far wall, its banister carved with figures that might have been flowers if you did not look too closely. The stone floor beneath my boots was smooth and damp, and my footsteps left faint prints that vanished as the moisture rose back to meet them. There were candelabras along the walls. Their flames were lit, but the air smelled like there was no real fire, no wax. The light they gave off was thin and yellow, like it was being strained through old cloth. I called out, "My name is Belle. I am looking for my father, Morris." The sound of my voice did not travel the way it should have. It went only a few feet before it seemed to be swallowed, as if the hall had soft walls instead of stone. Then something moved in the darkness at the edge of the light. A figure stepped forward, and for a moment I thought it was a man in a formal coat. Then the light caught his face, and my stomach turned. He had the posture of a servant, straight-backed, hands folded, chin lowered respectfully. But his features were wrong, as if someone had tried to sculpt a human from memory and failed. His skin had the pale sheen of porcelain. His eyes were too glossy, too reflective. His mouth was a thin line that did not quite sit on the right part of his face. When he spoke, his voice was smooth, and it came with the faint sound of something scraping behind it, like metal on stone. "Welcome," he said. "We have been expecting you." I swallowed. The hall felt colder. I forced myself to ask, "Is my father here?" The servant tilted his head slightly, a gesture almost human. "Your father arrived under troubled circumstances. He is safe, for now." For now made my blood go thin. I took a step forward. I want to see him. The servant's eyes flicked over me in a way that felt less like looking and more like measuring. The master of the house will decide what you are allowed to see. I did not like the way he said master, not like a host, like a keeper. Before I could respond, another shape emerged behind him. Another servant, then another. They appeared in the doorway and along the staircase, all with the same wrongness, the same glossy eyes, the same porcelain pallor. Some wore coats, some wore dresses. One wore what looked like a powdered wig, though the powder was gray, and the hair underneath was not hair at all, but threads like dried moss. They moved with quiet precision, their shoes making no sound on the stone. Their faces held expressions that might once have been polite, but now they seemed frozen there, as if smiling would crack them. The first servant extended an arm toward the staircase. "Please," he said, "you will come with me." I hesitated, then followed, because the alternative was to turn and run and leave my father in whatever kind of safe this place offered. We climbed the staircase. The banister was slick beneath my fingers, and as I looked at the carvings, I realized they were not flowers. They were bodies twisted into vines, their limbs braided together, their faces half hidden behind leaves. Their mouths were open as if they were screaming or singing. It was hard to tell which. The corridor upstairs was long and lined with doors. The carpet was thick, dark red, and it muffled my steps. Portraits hung along the walls, but their subjects had been scratched out. Where faces should have been, there were rough circles, as if someone had taken a knife and carved away identity. The servant stopped at a door and opened it. The room beyond was warm, almost too warm, like the breath of an animal. A fire burned in the hearth, but again, the smell was wrong, more like heated iron than wood. The room was furnished lavishly, but everything felt slightly off. The chair legs were carved like bones. The bedposts ended in shapes that resembled claws. The drapes were heavy velvet, but when I brushed them, they felt slightly damp, like skin that sweats. "This will be your room," the servant said. "My room, not a guest room, not a place to rest. My room." I turned to him. I did not agree to stay here. He smiled with that thin, fixed line. "You are already here." I forced myself to breathe. I asked again, "Where is my father?" The servant's gaze flicked toward the door, then away. "The master will speak with you soon. Rest. You are tired from the journey." I wanted to argue. I wanted to push past him and search the castle myself. But the servants behind him shifted slightly, and the corridor seemed suddenly full of them, their glossy eyes catching the candlelight like wet stones. I backed into the room. The door closed softly behind me, not slammed, not locked with a click, but I felt the finality of it like a hand around my wrist. The moment I was alone, the warmth of the room became suffocating. I walked to the window and pulled back the curtain. Outside, the forest was a dark sea. Rain fell in thin lines that seemed to vanish before they reached the ground. courtyard below was empty. The gate I had walked through was still open, but the path beyond it was swallowed by trees and fog. I tried the door. It opened easily. That was worse. If it had been locked, I could have named the danger. An open door meant I was being allowed to leave, which meant leaving was part of the game. I sat on the edge of the bed and rubbed my hands together. My fingers were cold. My bones felt cold. The warmth in the room did not reach inside me. I took out my phone. No signal. I checked the time. It was wrong. It read a number that did not make sense, as if the phone had given up and decided any digits would do. I stood and walked to the mirror above the dresser. It was large, framed in ornate gold. The glass reflected me, pale and damp from the rain, hair stuck to my cheeks. But behind my reflection, the room looked slightly different. The bed was farther away. The fireplace was taller. The shadows were deeper. And in the corner, where there should have been only a chair, there was something else. A shape thin, too tall, watching. I turned sharply. The corner held only the chair. When I looked back at the mirror, the shape was still there, closer now. It had a head that was not a head, a mass of dark texture, like fur or feathers, or something wet. My heart hammered. I stepped away. The mirror returned to reflecting only me. I told myself it was stress, grief, fear making patterns where there were none. But my skin had goose flesh, and it did not go away. A knock came at the door. I jumped, then forced myself to answer. "Come in." The door opened, and the first servant entered carrying a tray. On it sat a steaming bowl of soup, bread, and a glass of dark red wine. The smell hit me, rich and savory, and my stomach betrayed me with a painful twist of hunger. "You must eat," the servant said. I thought of the old woman's warning. Do not take their food. I looked at the servant. I am not hungry. His glossy eyes did not blink. "Of course you are." He set the tray on the table. The soup's surface rippled, though nothing disturbed it. The bread was torn open, and the inside looked almost too soft, too fresh. The wine caught the firelight and looked like blood. I backed away. I said, "I would like to see your master." The servant's smile widened just a fraction. "Tonight, perhaps. For now, eat." He turned to leave, then paused at the threshold. "One more thing," he said. "If you hear noises from the west wing, you must not follow them. It is for your safety." Then he left, closing the door softly behind him. I stared at the tray. The smell made my mouth water. My stomach felt hollow. I had eaten little since the village. The soup's steam rose in delicate curls that looked like fingers. I picked up the spoon. My hand trembled. I lowered it into the soup. The liquid was thick, and as I stirred, something pale rolled to the surface. A small bone, too clean, too white. I dropped the spoon. It clattered against the bowl. The servants were not human, and now the food was not food. I pushed the tray away so hard it slid across the table and bumped the wall. The wine glass tipped, but the liquid did not spill. It clung to the glass as if it had the consistency of syrup. I backed away until I hit the bed, then sat, trying to slow my breathing. The air felt heavy. The shadows in the room seemed to pool thicker near the corners. Then the noise began. At first it was distant, a low murmur behind the walls. I held my breath and listened. It sounded like a voice, muffled, speaking quickly. Then another voice, higher, strained. Then a sound that made my blood freeze. Chains, a dragging scrape, metal on stone, slow and deliberate, like something being pulled across a floor. I stood without thinking. The servant's warning echoed in my head. Do not follow them. It is for your safety. But my father was here, somewhere. If those chains were his, if those voices were his, how could I stay in this room and listen? I crept to the door and opened it. The corridor was lit by dim sconces. The red carpet absorbed the light and made it feel like walking through dried blood. The air out here was colder, and it carried the faint smell of something animal, musky and damp. The servants were not in sight. The hallway stretched in both directions, silent except for that distant scraping. I stepped into the corridor and closed the door behind me softly. The sound came again, louder now. The scraping, the chain, the muffled voice. It was not coming from the west wing, not yet. It seemed to come from below, deeper in the castle. I moved toward the staircase, my footsteps muffled by the carpet. The portraits watched with their scratched-out faces. The gouged canvases looked like wounds. At the top of the stairs, I paused. The entrance hall below was dim, but I saw movement near the far corridor, a flicker of candlelight. The servants gliding somewhere unseen. I descended, keeping close to the wall. At the bottom, I moved past the grand hall and into a side corridor that smelled like mildew and old stone. The walls here were rougher, less polished, as if the castle's elegance ended where no guests were supposed to go. The scraping sound was clearer now. It came from behind a door at the end of the corridor. The door was iron, its surface cold and pitted. A heavy lock hung from it, but the lock was not closed. It dangled open as if waiting. I placed my hand on the iron. The cold sank into my skin. I pulled. The door opened inward with a slow resistance, as if the air behind it was thick. The room beyond was a stairwell descending into darkness. The smell hit me immediately, metallic and sour. The scent of old blood and damp fur. The air was cold enough to sting my lungs. I took a step down, then another. The stone stairs were slick, and I had to grip the wall to keep from slipping. Moisture beaded on the stone like sweat. The sound of chains grew louder. And beneath it, a voice, a deep voice, strained and broken, whispering something I could not fully hear. When I reached the bottom, the stairwell opened into a wide chamber lit by a single lantern hanging from the ceiling. Its light swayed slightly, though there was no wind. In the center of the chamber was a figure. At first glance, it was a man on his knees, bare to the waist, his wrists bound by thick chains anchored into the stone floor. His back was broad, muscles tense beneath skin that was marked with scars. His head hung low. Then he lifted his face, and I saw the beast. His features were animal, but not like a simple wolf man from a story. His face was an impossible blending of predator and human memory. His jaw jutted with teeth too long. His nose was flattened, nostrils flaring. Dark fur clung to his cheeks and forehead in uneven patches, as if it grew in pain. His eyes were yellow and wide, with pupils that tightened when they focused on me. He stared at me like he did not believe I was real. Then he spoke, and his voice was the one I had heard, the one strained by effort. "You should not be here." I took a step back, but the stairwell behind me felt too far. I forced my voice steady. "Where is my father?" The beast's gaze flicked to the side, as if the question caused him discomfort. He said, "Alive. For now." The same words, "for now." The castle loved that phrase. He pulled against the chains, and the metal groaned. He did not lunge. He did not try to reach me. He stayed where he was, like a dog trained to obey even when hungry. "Listen," he said, voice low. "You must leave. You must go now while you can still find the path. The servants told me you were expecting me." A low sound rumbled in his chest, something between a laugh and a growl. "Expecting? Yes. The castle expects things. It expects you to play your part." My skin prickled. What part? He looked at me, and there was something in his eyes that surprised me. Fear. Not fear of me, fear for me. He said, "It will try to make you stay. It will offer comfort. It will offer you answers. It will offer you your father, perhaps. But everything it offers is a hook." I swallowed. "Who are you?" His gaze lowered. "I was a man once, a long time ago. I do not remember my name anymore, not correctly. The castle takes names first. It makes you easier to shape." The chains clinked as he shifted. His shoulders trembled as if he were holding himself together through force of will. I took another step forward despite myself. "Why are you chained?" His breathing quickened. He said, "Because if I am not, I become something else. Something worse." The air felt suddenly tighter. The lantern light flickered, and shadows moved along the stone walls like living things. I whispered, "What do you mean?" The beast's lips pulled back from his teeth, not in a snarl, but in something like shame. He said, "This is not my true form." The words made my stomach drop. He stared at me with a terrible intensity. "Every night it comes. Every night I hear it in my bones, the thing behind my skin, the thing the curse keeps folded inside me. If I do not chain myself, it will come out. It will look for you. It will look for anyone." My mouth went dry. I forced myself to ask, "What is it?" He closed his eyes. When he opened them again, They glistened, like the eyes of an animal caught in a trap. He said, "It is what I was before I was a man. It is what the castle is. It is hunger. It is endless wanting. It is the shape that desire takes when it has no human heart to soften it." A sound echoed above us, faint footsteps, the soft glide of many feet in the corridor. The servants. The beast's head snapped up. "Go," he hissed, "now." But I could not. Not yet, my father. The beast pulled against the chains, and the stone rings in the floor creaked as if they might tear free. His voice sharpened. "They will punish him if you disobey. They will punish you worse." I backed toward the stairs, my heart pounding. The lantern swayed harder now, and its light made the beast's fur shine like wet tar. For a moment, I thought I saw something under his skin, a shifting lump traveling beneath the muscle, like a snake moving under cloth. I stumbled up the stairs, hands slick against the damp stone. The iron door at the top seemed farther away than before. When I reached it, I shoved it open and spilled into the corridor. The servants were there. They stood in a neat line, their glossy eyes reflecting the sconce light. The first servant stepped forward. His porcelain face was calm. His smile was polite. "You have wandered," he said. I panted, trying to hide the tremor in my voice. "I was looking for my father." The servant nodded. "Of course, your concern is admirable, but you must not go where you are not invited." His gaze flicked past me toward the stairwell door. For a moment, his smile tightened, as if he could smell the beast's fear on me. "Come," he said, "the master will see you now." Before I could refuse, the servants surrounded me. Not grabbing, not touching, just close enough that I could feel their cold presence, close enough that I could not run without brushing against them. They guided me back through the corridor, through the grand hall, up the staircase, deeper into the castle. We passed doors that looked newer, then doors that looked older, their wood warped and cracked. The air changed. It grew warmer, thick with a perfume scent that did not belong in a damp stone building. Sweet, cloying, like flowers left too long in water. We stopped before a set of double doors. These were carved with roses. The roses looked realistic enough that I could almost imagine petals soft under my fingers, but the thorns were sharp, exaggerated, curling into hooks. The servant opened the doors. The room beyond was vast, a ballroom or salon. A chandelier hung from the ceiling, its crystals catching candlelight and scattering it like broken glass. The floor was polished black stone that reflected the light so perfectly it looked like a dark lake. At the far end of the room, seated on an ornate chair like a throne, was the master. He looked like a man. That was the first wrong thing. After the servants, after the beast, I expected a monster. But he was human in shape, tall and slender, dressed in a dark suit that fit him with unnatural perfection. His hair was black and neat. His hands were pale, long-fingered, resting lightly on the arms of the chair. His face was handsome in a cold, sculpted way, like an old statue polished smooth by time. His eyes were dark and bright, and when he looked at me, it felt like being touched by something that did not have skin. Belle, he said, and my name sounded intimate in his mouth. Welcome. I stood at the threshold, my throat tightened. Where is my father? The master smiled softly. Your father is resting. He is treated well. He is valuable. Valuable, my anger flared. I stepped forward. He is not a thing. The master's eyes glittered. Everything is a thing if you understand it. But do not worry. I am not cruel without purpose. I am not like the one beneath the castle. I have learned restraint. The way he said, beneath the castle, made my skin crawl. You know about the beast? The master leaned forward slightly. Of course, he belongs to this house, as do the servants, as do the stones, as do you, now that you have crossed the threshold. I swallowed hard. I did not agree to that. The master's smile widened just a fraction. Agreement is not required. Only presence. The servants behind me remained silent, their glossy eyes fixed. I felt trapped between the master's gaze and their stillness. I forced my voice steady. Let me see my father. Then I will leave. The master tilted his head, considering. Leave. Such a simple word. Do you think the forest will welcome you back after you have been seen by this place? I did not answer. He rose from his chair with fluid grace and walked toward me. His footsteps made no sound on the black stone. He stopped a few feet away, close enough that I could see faint veins under his pale skin, close enough that I could smell his scent, that sweet floral perfume layered over something metallic. You came for him, he said softly. Love, devotion, brave little virtues. I admire them. Then his voice changed, subtle as a knife turning. But you have also come because you are curious, because you cannot bear not knowing, because you believe your love gives you the right to trespass. I clenched my hands. Tell me what you are. His eyes held mine. I am the host. I am the keeper. I am what remains when a curse learns to speak. My breath caught. You are not human. He chuckled quietly. Human is a costume. Sometimes it fits well. He turned away and gestured toward a side door. Come, I will grant you what you want. A glimpse, a reassurance. But first, there are rules. He looked back at me. Do not go to the west wing. Do not touch the rose. Do not speak to the beast at night. My heartbeat stuttered. You know I spoke to him. The master's smile did not change. I know everything that happens under my roof. The beast suffers because he does not obey. I would hate for you to suffer the same way. The threat was velvet, wrapped around iron. I followed him because I had no other choice. He led me through corridors that seemed to shift in length. Sometimes the hallway felt too long, the doors repeating like a pattern. Sometimes it felt too short, like we had stepped through a fold in space. The castle did not feel like a building. like an idea that could rearrange itself at will. We came to a door with a small window set into it. The glass was thick and cloudy. The master placed his hand on the knob. Inside, he said, "Your father waits." He opened the door. The room was small and bare, except for a chair and a bed. A single candle burned on a table. The air smelled of sweat and old fear. My father sat on the bed. His hair was unkempt. His face was pale. His eyes were sunken with exhaustion, but he was alive. "Dad," I whispered, and my voice broke. His head snapped up, and when he saw me, his expression twisted relief and terror together. "Belle," he rasped. No, you should not be here." I moved toward him, but the master's hand touched my shoulder, gentle but firm, stopping me. "Your father is safe," the master murmured. "You see, I keep my promises." My father's gaze flicked to the master, and his whole body flinched. He grabbed the edge of the bed like he might fall. "Belle," he said again, urgently. "Leave. Please, go home." I looked at him, heart aching. "I came for you. I will get you out." My father shook his head. His voice dropped, as if the walls listened. "You cannot. You do not understand. The castle, it changes. It watches. It is inside you before you know it. It wants you." My stomach turned. I glanced at the master. He watched us like a man watching a play he had written. I forced myself to speak. "Dad, what happened? Why did you come here?" My father swallowed. "I followed the path. I thought it was a shortcut. I saw the gate open. I heard someone call my name. Then I was inside, and the servants brought me food, and I ate, and after that I could not think clearly. I could not leave. It was like my feet forgot how. I remembered the soup tray, the bone. I felt sick. The master's hand tightened on my shoulder. "Time," he said lightly. "Your father needs rest." I pulled away from him, anger flaring. "We are leaving. Now." The master's eyes cooled. "Are you?" I grabbed my father's arm. He was thin beneath my fingers, trembling. We stood, and for a heartbeat, the room felt almost normal, like any grim place with a candle and a frightened man. Then the candle flame bent sideways, though there was no wind. The air thickened. The door behind us clicked shut on its own. My father's eyes widened. "Belle," he whispered. The master's voice was soft. "You will sit." The words hit me like pressure on my skull. Not hypnotism, not magic like in movies, but a heavy force that made my knees want to buckle. My father swayed, his face twisting with pain. I clenched my jaw and fought it. I stepped forward again, dragging my father with me, but my legs felt like wading through deep water. The master sighed, almost disappointed. Stubbornness, a family trait. He lifted his hand. His fingers curled slightly, like he was pulling a thread. My father gasped and fell back onto the bed, as if his muscles had been cut. He clutched his chest, eyes wide. His breathing became shallow. "Dad," I cried, rushing to him. The master's voice was calm. He will be fine. I am not killing him. Not yet. But you must learn. The castle does not respond well to defiance. I stared at him, hatred boiling in my chest. Let us go. The master leaned in close, his breath cool against my ear. You can leave. Of course you can. The doors are not locked. The gate is open. The path waits. But you will not. Not while your father is here. And not while the beast is here. You have already seen him, have you not? You have already felt his tragedy pull at your heart. My blood went cold. He knows. The master straightened. I will make you an offer, he said. A simple exchange. You stay for a time. You dine. You walk my halls. You learn the rules. You pretend, for just a little while, that this is a place where love can grow. And in return, your father remains breathing. I swallowed hard, and if I refuse, the master looked at my father, then back at me. Then I stopped being restrained. My father's eyes were glassy with fear. He whispered, "Belle, please." My throat tightened with helpless rage. I nodded once, because there was no other move that did not end in blood on the floor. The master's smile returned, warm as a knife. Good, we will make a proper guest of you. He turned and walked out, and the door opened as if eager to please him. The servants waited outside, still and patient. Before the door closed again, my father grabbed my wrist weakly. His fingers were cold. He whispered, "Do not go to the west wing. Do not look. Promise me." I remembered the old woman's warning. I remembered the servant's warning. I remembered the beast chained in the dark, his eyes full of fear. I leaned close to my father. I promised. The days that followed were a blur of false comfort. My room upstairs remained warm and lavish. The servants brought clean clothes that fit perfectly, as if the castle knew my measurements. They brought baths of steaming water that smelled like roses and iron. They brought meals that looked like feasts, roasted meats and pastries and fruit, all gleaming and rich. I did not eat, not at first. I told them I was not hungry. They smiled that fixed smile and left the plates anyway. And when I looked away, the food seemed to shift subtly, the meat darker, the fruit bruised. If I stared too long, I thought I could see tiny movements, like something breathing under the skin of an apple. Hunger gnawed at me. My body grew weak. My head ached. On the third day, I ate a piece of bread because I could not stop shaking. It tasted like warmth and salt and comfort. It tasted like my childhood kitchen. It tasted like safety. I cried as I chewed, because I knew it was a lie, and because part of me wanted to believe it anyway. After I ate, the castle felt closer. The air felt thicker. The walls seemed to listen more attentively. When I walked, I sometimes caught faint reflections in polished surfaces that did not match my movements, like a delay, like something else wearing my shape half a second behind. The master visited me in the evenings. He did not touch me. He did not threaten openly. He spoke softly, like a gentleman. He asked me about my life, about my father, about what I loved. He listened with perfect attention, and when I spoke, it felt like giving him pieces of myself he could pocket. He told me stories about the castle. He said it had been built on old stone, older than any kingdom. He said it had been a sanctuary, then a prison, then a mouth. He said people came seeking answers, seeking miracles, seeking love, and the castle gave them what they wanted until wanting became their whole body. He spoke of the beast as if he were a beloved pet. The poor creature, he would say, so tormented, so desperate to be human. I asked if the beast had a name. The master smiled. He did, once. But names are fragile. The castle eats them. You should hold yours close. At night, I heard the chains again. Sometimes, I heard the beast's voice, low and broken, whispering words that sounded like prayers. Sometimes, I heard something else, a wet shifting sound under the stone, like 1,000 bodies turning in sleep. I kept my promise to my father. I did not go near the west wing. I did not try to find the beast again. Until the night, the screaming began. It started as a muffled cry, far away, so faint I thought I imagined it. Then it rose, sharp and sudden, a human scream that cut through the castle's hush, like glass breaking. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. The scream came again, closer, then cut off abruptly. Silence followed, heavy and absolute. I got out of bed and opened my door. The corridor was empty. The sconces burned low. The red carpet swallowed the light. I stepped into the hall and listened. From somewhere deeper in the castle came a sound like breathing, huge and slow, as if the building itself inhaled. Then a voice, faint and strained, whispered my name. Belle. It was not my father. It was not the master. It was the beast. My skin prickled. I hesitated, then moved down the corridor, drawn by the sound. Belle, the voice came again, urgent. Please. I found myself at the top of the staircase, looking down into the dim hall. The candles below flickered. Shadows moved along the walls like black water. The voice came from the corridor that led to the stairwell door, the one that went down to the chamber where the beast chained himself. I descended, my feet silent on the carpet. The air grew colder with each step, and the smell of damp fur grew stronger. At the iron door, I paused. The lock still hung open. The door itself looked darker than before, as if moisture had seeped into it and turned it nearly black. I opened it and went down. The chamber below was lit by the same swaying lantern. The beast knelt in the center, wrists bound. His chest rose and fell quickly, and his eyes were wide. You came, he rasped. I stepped forward, keeping distance. What is happening? Someone screamed. The beast's chains clinked as he shifted. The master is angry. He is pushing the curse. He wants you frightened. He wants you desperate. I swallowed. Why? The beast's gaze locked on mine. Because fear makes you pliable. It makes you cling to the first hand that offers comfort. And he wants you to cling to him. A chill ran through me. What do you want? The beast's face tightened, muscles trembling. I want you to leave. I want you to take your father and run before the castle learns your taste completely. I shook my head helplessly. I cannot. He will kill my father. The beast's eyes flickered with something like pain. He will kill him anyway, once you have stayed long enough. Once you are too tired to fight. Once you have eaten enough that the castle can pull you back, even if you escape. My throat tightened. How do you know? The beast's breathing grew harsher. Because I have seen it. Because I have watched people come here. I have watched them become servants. I have watched them become furniture. I have watched them become silence. I thought of the banister bodies, the scratched out portraits. My stomach churned. The beast lowered his head, voice dropping. Listen, the West Wing. It is not just forbidden because it is dangerous. It is forbidden because it holds the truth. My pulse jumped. What truth? He lifted his face. It holds the mirror that shows what I am. The lantern light flickered, and for a moment, his fur seemed to ripple. The lump beneath his skin shifted again, more visible now, traveling along his ribs like something searching for an exit. He gasped, eyes squeezing shut. It is coming sooner tonight. I can feel it. The master is pulling at the leash. My fear sharpened. What happens when it comes? The beast looked at me with horror in his eyes. It will try to wear me like clothing. It will use my bones like a frame. And when it has my mouth, it will speak to you with my voice. It will beg. It will promise. It will tell you it loves you. And if you believe it, if you come close, it will open you like a fruit. My stomach lurched. I stepped back. The beast snarled, not at me, but at something inside him. Go, he choked out. Go now. Do not watch. Do not let it see you watching. But my feet would not move. My mind clung to the word truth. The West Wing, the forbidden place. If I could see the truth, maybe I could break whatever held my father. Maybe I could understand the castle's rules well enough to cheat them. I turned toward the stairs. I will find the West Wing. The beast's eyes widened. No, you promised. I looked back at him. My father is dying slowly in a room upstairs. Promises do not help him. The beast strained against his chains, and the metal groaned. His voice cracked. It will change you. It will put something in you that never leaves. I swallowed. It already has. Then I ran. I stumbled up the stairs, heart hammering. The corridor above was empty. The castle felt asleep, but it was a false sleep, like a predator lying still in tall grass. I moved through hallways I half remembered, turning corners, passing doors. I looked for any sign that said west, any clue, but the castle offered none. It shifted subtly, confusing me. The same portrait appeared twice. The same door appeared where it should not be. I forced myself to focus. The air in certain corridors smelled sweeter, more floral. Roses. I followed the scent. Eventually, I reached a hallway I had not seen before. The carpet here was darker, almost black. The walls were lined with tall mirrors covered in cloth. At the end of the hall stood a single door carved with roses, more intricate than the others. The thorns on the carving were sharp enough that I could imagine them drawing blood. My hand trembled as I reached for the knob. The moment my fingers touched it, the air changed. The hallway grew colder. The covered mirrors seemed to shiver beneath their cloth. I turned the knob and pushed. The door opened, and a wave of scent hit me, roses and rot. The room beyond was dark, except for a faint glow from within, as if something luminous breathed in the shadows. I stepped inside. This was not a bedroom or salon. It was a chapel of obsession. The walls were draped in black velvet. Candles lined every surface, their flames small and blue-tinged, as if burning on something other than wax. The floor was scattered with petals, not fresh, but dried and brittle, crushed underfoot into dusty red fragments. In the center of the room stood a glass case. Inside the case was a rose. It was alive. Its petals were deep red, almost black at the edges. Tiny droplets clung to it like dew, but when I leaned closer, I realized the droplets were thicker than water. Blood. The rose pulsed faintly, as if it had a heartbeat. I stepped back, breath caught. The warnings echoed in my mind. Do not touch the rose. But there was something else in the room that drew my gaze. A large mirror stood against the far wall, uncovered, taller than any man. Its frame was carved from bone, not shaped like bone, but bone itself, knotted and fused, with small teeth embedded like decoration. The surface of the mirror was not reflective. It was black like oil, and yet something moved within it, a slow swirl, as if the darkness had depth. My heart pounded. The beast said the mirror would show what he was. I approached with careful steps. The petals crunched softly under my boots. The air was colder near the mirror, and it smelled of damp earth, like a grave opened after rain. I stood before the black surface and stared. At first, I saw nothing. Then the darkness shifted, and a pale shape appeared, like a face rising from deep water. It was not the beast's face. It was worse. It was a thing with too many eyes, clustered like pearls in uneven rows. Its mouth was a vertical slit lined with teeth that moved like insects. Its skin looked like wet fur stretched over muscle that did not belong to any animal I knew. Limbs unfolded behind it, too many, bending in directions that made my stomach lurch. It pressed closer to the surface, and I realized with a sick jolt that it was not inside the mirror. The mirror was inside it. The mirror was a window, and the thing was on the other side, watching me through my own world like glass. A whisper slid into my mind, not heard with ears, but felt behind my eyes. Look closer. My hands went numb. I tried to step back, but my body did not obey. My gaze remained locked. The thing moved, and I saw human bone within it, ribs and spines arranged like scaffolding. Faces were pressed into its flesh, half absorbed, eyes rolling, mouths open in silent screams. They were not just victims, they were components. I felt bile rise. I swallowed hard. The whisper came again, warmer now, intimate. Do you see me? My skin crawled. I forced my lips to move. What are you? The mirror surface rippled, and the thing's eyes widened with delight. Its voice poured into my head like syrup. I am what you want when you want without end. I am hunger. I am love with the skin torn off. My heartbeat thundered. I tried to tear my gaze away, but the whisper held me. Your father came seeking lines on a map, it said. But what he truly sought was to be needed, to feel important. He offered himself like a candle. The castle drank him. Tears stung my eyes, partly from fear, partly from rage. Let him go. The thing's mouth slit widened. A wet sound like laughter. And you, Belle, it purred. You came seeking him. But what you truly seek is certainty. You want to know you can fix what breaks. You want to believe your love can undo rot. The mirror surface bulged outward slightly, as if something pressed from the other side. The whisper softened. I can give you certainty. I can give you your father. I can give you the beast, healed, human, gentle. All you must do is look at him when he changes. Look, and do not turn away. Witness is devotion. My breath came in ragged gasps. I forced my eyes away with pure will, snapping my gaze down to the petals on the floor. The pressure in my skull eased, like fingers loosening. I stumbled backward, heart racing. Behind me, the rose pulsed in its case. I turned and realized the case had a small door, slightly open, as if inviting. The whisper returned, softer, coaxing. Take it, hold it, carry me in your hands. I will be yours. I backed away, shaking my head. No. The candles flickered wildly, and the room seemed to inhale. The velvet on the walls rippled like skin. I ran. I burst out of the west wing, slamming the door behind me. The hallway was colder now, the air sharper. The covered mirrors along the walls shivered, their cloth writhing as if something beneath tried to press out. A voice called from behind me, not the whisper, but the master's voice, calm and amused. Curious little virtue. My blood froze, I spun. He stood at the end of the hall, hands clasped behind his back, smiling. The servants lined the walls behind him like statues. You disobeyed, he said softly. I backed away, heart pounding. I needed to run, to reach my father, to reach the gate, to reach anything that was not this hallway. The master tilted his head. And now, because you disobeyed, the beast will suffer. My stomach dropped. No. The master walked toward me, his footsteps silent. You wanted truth, he murmured. Truth has a cost. I turned and ran past him, past the servants. They did not grab me. They simply shifted, and somehow I was guided, funneled, herded through corridors that changed to keep me from finding my room, from finding the stairs to my father. The castle became a maze. Doors appeared where there were none. Hallways narrowed. The air grew thick with rose scent and damp fur. My breath came fast, and my lungs burned. Somewhere below, a scream erupted. It was not human. It was the beast. The sound ripped through the stone, raw and agonized, and it carried something else beneath it. A wet, tearing sound that made my stomach convulse. I ran toward the sound, desperate, and the castle let me, as if it wanted me to arrive in time. I reached the iron door to the stairwell and tore it open. I nearly fell down the steps, slipping on damp stone, grabbing the wall to steady myself. When I reached the chamber, the lantern swung violently, casting frantic shadows. The beast was still chained, but his body was changing. His skin bulged in places, as if something inside pushed outward. His ribs expanded, bones grinding. His fur split along his shoulders, revealing flesh beneath that pulsed and moved like it was alive in the wrong way. He screamed again, and the sound became layered, multiple voices inside one throat, as if the beast and something else were both trying to own the same mouth. Belle, he gasped, but the name came out warped, like a throat full of water. Go, do not look. I tried to look away, but my eyes betrayed me. The horror was magnetic. The truth demanded witness. The beast's spine arched. His shoulders widened. New joints formed beneath the skin, bending wrong. His arms trembled, and beneath the fur, shapes rolled like larvae. The chains tightened, and the stone rings in the floor cracked slightly, dust falling. His face twisted. The snout shortened, then lengthened again, bones shifting like clay. His eyes multiplied for a moment, blinking in different directions, then settled back into two. But those two were not the same yellow eyes. They were darker, hungrier. The beast's mouth opened, and the jaw unhinged too wide. Inside, something moved, a slick tongue splitting into smaller tendrils that tasted the air. Then the skin along his chest tore, not a clean tear, but a slow ripping, as if the flesh itself resisted. The fur split, and something pressed outward through the opening, a mass of wet muscle and bone, unfolding like a creature being born from within him. I clapped a hand over my mouth to stop myself from screaming. My knees shook. My stomach clenched. The thing emerged further, stretching the tear wider. Inside the beast's body, I saw more movement, more limbs folded, more eyes opening like flowers. The beast's voice, his real voice, came through the chaos in a strangled whisper. Please, do not let it see you. Do not let it know you watched. But it was too late. One of the new eyes, opening in the torn flesh near his collarbone, rolled and fixed on me. It was small, wet, and bright, and it stared with recognition, like a lover finding your face in a crowd. A voice poured into my head, warm and delighted. There you are. My vision swam. I felt the pressure behind my eyes again, the compulsion to stare, to witness, to offer devotion through attention. My body leaned forward without my permission, drawn closer. The creature within the beast began to laugh, and the sound came from every place it had opened. Mouths forming in flesh like wounds that learned to speak. You looked, it whispered inside me. You listened, you came. I backed away, clawing at the air as if I could push the voice out. No, no. The beast's chains rattled as his body convulsed. The thing inside him strained against the bindings, but the chains held, digging into flesh, cutting grooves that bled dark. The beast's eyes, the remaining human part of him, locked on mine, pleading. Run, he mouthed. The creature's voice slid through me again. Or stay, stay and love me. Stay and I will give you everything you lost. The lantern swung, and for a moment, the shadows on the wall formed shapes that resembled the servants, but larger, more distorted, as if the castle itself watched from every corner. Footsteps sounded above, soft and quick. The servants were coming. The master. I stumbled backward toward the stairs, eyes fixed on the beast, because the creature inside him seemed to tug at my gaze like a hook. As I climbed, the voice followed. You cannot unsee me, Belle. You cannot unloved what you have witnessed. I burst into the corridor and slammed the iron door. My hands shook so hard I could barely breathe. Tears ran down my face without me noticing. The servants stood at the other end of the corridor, watching. The master stood among them, smiling like a man enjoying a concert. You see, he said softly, you wanted truth. Now it lives in you. I backed away, wild-eyed. Let my father go. Let us leave. The master's smile widened. Leave, of course. The gate is open. He stepped closer. But you will take the truth with you. You will take the voice. It will whisper at night. It will follow you into mirrors. It will call you back. I shook my head. I will not come back. The master's eyes glittered. Everyone says that. He gestured, and the servants moved aside, revealing a door behind them. The door to my father's room. Go, he said. Take him. Run. Let us see how far love carries you when hunger follows. I did not wait. I ran to the door and threw it open. My father lay on the bed, breathing shallowly. His skin was gray, and sweat dampened his hair. When I touched his cheek, he flinched weakly. Dad, I whispered, we are leaving. Now. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused. Belle, he murmured, you should not have. I helped him sit up. He was heavy, limp with exhaustion. I hauled him to his feet, and he swayed, nearly collapsing. I wrapped his arm over my shoulders and dragged him out. The servants watched without moving. The master watched, smiling. We moved through corridors. The castle seemed almost cooperative now, guiding us toward the staircase, toward the entrance hall. But the air felt wrong. The walls felt too close. The candlelight flickered in a way that made the shadows look like they crawled. My father whispered weakly, "Did you go to the west wing?" I did not answer. His hand tightened on my shoulder with surprising strength. Belle. I swallowed, yes. His eyes filled with despair. Oh no. We reached the front doors. They stood open, revealing the courtyard and the gray, rainy forest beyond. The gate was still open. Freedom waited 10 steps away. I dragged my father forward, heart pounding. The air outside felt colder, cleaner, less perfumed. As we stepped into the courtyard, the castle exhaled. I felt it in my bones, a slow pulse that made the stones underfoot vibrate. The whisper inside my head returned, soft and pleased. Yes, go run. I like the chase. My stomach clenched. I stumbled, nearly falling, but kept moving. We reached the gate. The forest beyond was a wall of fog and trees. The path that had led me here was not visible. I stepped through the gate, pulling my father with me, and the fog thickened instantly, swallowing the courtyard behind us. The castle vanished like it had never existed. The iron bars of the gate were gone. The stone road behind us was gone. We stood in the forest, with rain dripping from branches, and no sign of any hill, any castle, any way back. My father sagged against me, panting. Belle, he whispered, we are not out. I looked around, panic rising. The trees were too close. The fog muffled sound. The air smelled of damp earth and something else, faintly sweet. A rose scent. The whisper in my head chuckled. The path is not a line, it murmured. It is a loop. I felt my throat close. No. We staggered forward, searching for any direction that felt right. My phone was useless. The sky was a uniform gray sheet. The forest looked identical in every direction. My father's breathing grew ragged. His weight dragged me down. Then through the fog, I saw a shape, a lantern hanging from a branch, swaying gently. Beneath it, a figure, one of the servants. Porcelain face, glossy eyes, polite smile. Welcome, it said softly. We have been expecting you. My blood went cold. I spun, dragging my father, trying to run another way. But the fog thickened, and more figures appeared between the trees, silent and still, forming a ring. The master's voice drifted through the fog, not loud, but clear. You can leave the castle, Belle, but you cannot leave the story. My knees buckled, my father gasped, clutching my arm. No, he whispered. Not again. The servants stepped closer, their movements smooth and inevitable. The whisper inside my head purred. Bring him back, it said. Bring him home. I stared at the servants, at the fog, at the rain. My mind raced. If the forest was a loop, if the path was not a line, then there was only one way out. Not forward, not back, through. I remembered the warning. If a voice asks you to look, keep your eyes on the floor like you are in church. I lowered my gaze to the wet leaves and mud. I forced my eyes away from the servants, away from their glossy reflections. I focused on my father's hand gripping mine, on the feel of his skin, real and warm. I whispered, Dad, close your eyes." He did, trembling. Then I took a breath and spoke into the air, not to the servants, not to the master, but to whatever listened behind the world. "You want witness," I said, voice shaking. "You want devotion through attention. You want me to look." The whisper in my head grew still. I continued, forcing each word. "Then I will deny you. I will not look. I will not speak your name. I will not carry your truth like a treasure. I will carry it like a wound that I refuse to touch." Silence pressed in heavy. The servant stopped. The fog shifted, as if confused. The whisper returned, colder now. "You cannot deny what you have seen." I swallowed, "Watch me." I closed my eyes. The darkness behind my eyelids was terrifying, because it left me blind in a forest full of monsters. But I held my father's hand, and I stepped forward anyway, moving by feel, by memory, by stubborn refusal to give the castle what it wanted. The servants' voices rose around me, polite, coaxing, then sharper, urging me to open my eyes, to look, to see. I did not. I felt hands brush near my shoulders, not touching, just close enough to tempt panic. I heard footsteps circling. I smelled roses thick as blood. My father stumbled, and I tightened my grip, dragging him forward, eyes closed, heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst. Then suddenly, the air changed. The rose scent thinned. The damp earth smell sharpened. The fog lightened, and even with my eyes closed, I felt a difference, like stepping out of a room into open air. I dared to open my eyes. We stood on the gravel road near my car. Behind us, the forest looked ordinary. The fog was gone. There were no servants, no lantern, no voices. My car sat in the clearing, exactly where I left it, rain beating on the hood. My father sagged, sobbing quietly. I helped him into the passenger seat, hands shaking as I fumbled with the keys. When the engine turned over, the sound felt like a miracle. We drove. The road seemed longer than before, twisting, but it led back to the village. When we reached it, the sight of small houses and streetlights made me cry. A sudden release, I could not stop. We went to the police. We went to a doctor. We told them we got lost in the forest. We told them my father was dehydrated, confused. They asked questions, but they did not press too hard. People in that village had learned which stories were safe to hear. For a while, it seemed like we were free. My father recovered slowly. He returned home. He tried to pretend it was over. He avoided talking about the castle. When I asked, he would shake his head and tell me to sleep. But I did not sleep. At night, I heard chains in my dreams. I saw the beast's eyes, pleading warning. And sometimes, in the mirror of my bedroom, I saw a flicker of darkness behind my reflection, like a shadow wearing my face half a second behind. The whisper returned in small ways. In the grocery store, as I passed the fruit aisle, a voice would murmur, hungry. In the shower, as water ran over my skin, it would sigh, look closer. In the middle of a conversation, in the warmth of laughter, it would whisper, "Do you see me?" I stopped using mirrors. I covered them with cloth. I avoided reflective windows. I tried to starve the voice of attention. It did not go away. One night, weeks after we returned, my father woke screaming. I ran to his room, heart pounding, and found him sitting up in bed, eyes wide, pointing at the wall. "It is here," he whispered. The air smelled faintly of roses. I turned slowly, dread pooling in my stomach. The wall held no doorway. Then the wallpaper rippled, as if something beneath it breathed. A shape pressed outward, faint, like a hand beneath fabric. My father began to sob. "Belle," he whispered, "it found us." The whisper in my head purred with satisfaction. "You cannot leave the story," it said. "You can only choose how it ends." I understood then what the beast meant when he said the truth lives in you. The castle did not need a hill or a gate or a road. It needed only a mind that had seen it and a heart that had felt its pull. It had planted itself in me like a seed. I did the only thing I could think of. I took my father's hand and I led him out of the house into the night, away from the mirrors, away from the walls, away from the places the castle could mimic. We drove until sunrise, until the city swallowed us with noise and light. I kept us in places crowded with people, where the air smelled of gasoline and food, not roses and damp stone. Most people would say this is where my story ends, with survival, with escape, with my father breathing safely in the next room, and the hill that should not exist fading into memory. That would be easier, but the truth is, I still think of him, late at night, when the world is quiet and the air feels heavy. I remember the way he looked at me in that lantern light. Not like I was prey, not like I was a prize, but like I was something fragile he was trying desperately not to break. He chained himself. He chose pain. He chose to suffer rather than let that thing wear him and use him to hurt me. And that is the part that will not let me sleep. I saw what lives inside him. I saw what waits behind his skin. I know the horror. I know the risk. But I also saw fear in his eyes. And something else. Something human. The castle wanted me to witness hunger. It wanted devotion through terror. But what I witnessed was sacrifice. And that is harder to forget. Some nights, I stand in front of a covered mirror, and I almost pull the cloth away. Not because I want to see the creature, because I want to see if he is still there, if the chains are still holding, if he is still fighting. The whisper follows me, yes. The memory follows me. The scent of roses drifts into rooms that have never known a garden. But beneath all of it, beneath the fear, there is something else growing. Not obsession, not temptation, something quieter, something stubborn. Love does not die just because it is dangerous. Sometimes it becomes sharper, clearer, impossible to ignore. And I have begun to understand something terrible. The castle is patient, but so am I. If I go back, it will not be because the hunger calls me. It will be because he does. And if I ever stand in that stone chamber again, it will not be as a frightened girl who wandered too far. It will be as someone who knows exactly what lives in the dark and chooses to face it anyway. Some monsters are born from cruelty, some are born from curses, and some are simply waiting for someone brave enough to love what is still human inside them. If you think I should never return, I understand. If you think love has no place in something that monstrous, maybe you are right. But if you have ever looked at something broken and believed it could still be saved, then you already know why I might take that road again. If you made it to the end, thank you for listening to my story. Let me know in the comments what you think I should do. Please like the video and subscribe for more. Good night.
Whispers of a love so true, painting dreams of me and you. And I'll hold you close in this moment.